I'd like to welcome Sinan Ciddi now, Senior Fellow at the Foundation for the Defence of Democracies. He's the Director of the Turkey Programme. Welcome to you. Trump says he wants Turkey to stop buying Russian oil and gas. How do you think Ankara is going to respond to that, given that it does rely heavily on Russian energy?
Yeah, it's a tricky one for Turkey simply because Ankara may be facing the prospect of US sanctions if Trump makes bold moves to further punish countries that continue to import fossil fuels from Russia. So one of the deals that we've seen tentatively signed with the United States right now is to purchase liquefied natural gas from the United States for a period of number of years up until 2045, if I've seen this correctly, which is about accounting for 8 to 10% of Turkey's yearly needs. But this will come at quite a steep cost. But then the question becomes, where will Turkey essentially continue to procure the remainder of its needs, if not from Russia? Because Turkey does require a considerable amount of natural gas, and Russia is the cheapest and most reliable supplier it has had until now. So just because Mr. Trump has asked Erdogan to give it up, how will Turkey procure the rest? And more importantly, in return for doing so, what will Turkey get?
Yeah, interesting. Now, the US and Turkey are in a long-running dispute over fighter jets. Now, the US expelled Turkey from its F-35 program in 2019 after Turkey bought air defense systems from Russia. Trump seems to be signaling a shift on that, though. How risky could this be for NATO?
I think it could be considerably risky. Turkey was expelled from the F-35 program, as you say, because Turkey acquired Russian defensive missiles from the Russian Federation back in 2019, which puts the stealth capabilities of the F-35 at considerable risk because it can collect sensitive data from that aircraft and pass it on to Russian adversaries, because those S-400 missiles that it purchased from Russia are operated in part by Russian crews. And NATO, as well as the United States, was livid with Turkey after repeated warnings not to purchase those air defense systems, and saying that Turkey should be purchasing NATO-manufactured systems, which it did not. Now, Turkey has not made any attempt whatsoever to divest of those S-400s, and it wants to purchase the F-35s. And I'm not sure how that things are basically compatible, because there are existing US laws and sanctions in place which prevent Turkey acquiring the F-35, even though Mr. Trump did signal that Turkey could acquire, or he may be interested in talking to Turkey about acquiring this. I think from where I'm sitting, and from the amount of pressure being positioned and placed upon the United States administration, Turkey would have to make significant moves on S-400s before the administration is willing to move on selling F-35s to Turkey. I think something would have to give, and I don't see Turkey signaling on that, but it's early hours since the two have met, and we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I'd like to finally ask you about the optics of this visit, because Joe Biden never invited Erdogan to the White House. Trump now seems to be embracing him. How important has this visit been to Erdogan, both on the international stage but at home as well?
Yeah, correct. I mean, look, Biden did not want Biden did not want Erdogan in the White House for good reasons. I mean, from his time in office, as vice president and as president, Erdogan is toxic. He does not like him. For Erdogan, this is a big win. Erdogan has wanted to get back in the White House and, have a photo opportunity with the sitting US president since he first met with Trump. So this is a huge win. The optics are huge simply because he gets to show that at home, that he's met with the US president, he has gravitas on the world stage, that he's negotiating, he's getting deals signed with the US president. And at a time when, the Turkish president is jailing leaders, close to banning the opposition party at home or replacing it with caretaker leadership, cancelling out the last vestiges of democratic governance inside of Turkey, being legitimized by the leader of the so-called free world, the United States, right? This gives Erdogan a considerable amount of gravitas and currency on the world stage. So it's more of a win, even if he doesn't get F-35s or anything else on that matter. And so he's walked away probably a little bit chuffed at this point.
That was Sinan Ciddi at the Foundation for Defence of Democracies. Thank you so much for your analysis today.